Welcome, friends. Welcome, demulleted Robert Langdon, to Sunday Cinematic Service, where we talk about a faith-based piece of media or art. In this case, we're talking about the 2009 film Angels and Demons, the sequel to the DaVinci Code, the popular cultural phenomenon when it came out, based on, well, the book was more of a big deal than the film itself, but the book was written by Dan Brown, and it caused a big stir by having a sort of different interpretation of Catholic history that many people found to be sacrilegious, and the controversy generated huge sales, which meant, as all massively selling books do, that would get a film adaptation, which was the, I believe, 2006 film The DaVinci Code, also by Ron Howard, and with Tom Hanks as Robert Langdon. Film was massive success, made nearly $1 billion on a budget of about 100. But it was critically savage for being a boring, overly talky film where people in dark rooms just spouted exposition at each other. But because it was such a big hit, it was obviously going to get a sequel, where Ron Howard decided to listen to the criticism and just have people spout boring exposition while running towards the next scene as frantically as possible. So we've just watched the film, and I'll try and give a brief description of sort of what happens in it. Robert Langdon, a symbologist extraordinaire, wants to get access to the Vatican archives to complete his book. And he's got a good opportunity to do so now, as 4 people who are next in line to be the Pope have been kidnapped. And also a bomb made from antimatter has also been taken and will be set off at midnight that night, unless if Robert Langdon can heroically save the day by interpreting various clues and symbols, which will let him know where the potential popes are and where the bomb is. I suppose we can get into more as we sort of get into discussion, but Heath, what did you think of Angels and Demons?
Well, it was fine. So it was a perfectly mediocre film, as we discussed for 10 minutes while the film was running, about Ron Howard and his ability to just create fine films, nothing too exciting, and this does not at all sort of stray from that. It's a perfectly acceptable film, and like I kind of get like why people found it so not interesting, but like were okay with it, because it's like fairly well paced. Like there's something happening pretty much all of the time, but like as I just said, we had like a 10-minute conversation about Ron Howard's filmography during watching this, and we didn't miss anything at all. Like, like, you know, I realized that we'd been talking for a while. We went back to like paying attention to the story, and it wasn't difficult at all to like go, yep, okay, now I know what's going on.
Yeah, the film's got a weird thing where it's packed with detail and event. Like, people are constantly doing things, explaining things, or saying what something means, and it's just dialogue scene after dialogue scene while people move to the next thing. But it's also like the definition of like a Netflix and chill film, because yeah, you can zone out for a while and you've missed so little, because it has such a formulaic plot of, you know, X is going to happen by midnight, and Y has to solve it. You can get every element of it, basically, you can get from the start. Anyone who's surprised by any of the twists who are in it are boobs or people who have genuinely checked out for long periods of time. So yeah, it's full of things that are happening which could possibly make people watching it, you know, it's a definitive of, well, I think, like, mum film. Like, it's for people who like Agatha Christie or detective novels. Or I'm surprised, to be honest, that this even, I think if it were made a different era, this could have been like a straight to TV film. Basically, it's probably a little bit too high budget for that, but it has that sort of pace of like a Midsummer Murders, where it's like gentle little twists that aren't that hard to actually see coming if you're paying attention. And but yeah, like you're never going to miss very much, no matter how much time you miss, just because it is so easy to guess that, spoiler alert, Ewan McGregor's behind everything, and it'll eventually turn out that that's the case.
Yeah. Well, I think like it is packed with things in there, like just him going like figuring stuff out, like this statue points at something, and so that something is something else, blah blah blah. But the thing is that like all that explanation is useless. Like you don't need it at all. And it is like completely. It is like the things that he talks about. Like once you sort of drill down to them, they are completely arbitrary. Like there's no. Like there's 100. Like when you like if you actually paid attention to what was happening and doing that and knew a bit of history and whatnot, you could you know like you could sort of come up with like 100 different scenarios that what he's interpreted could be different.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a weird film because like it got all this controversy for all the sort of like elements that could theoretically be sacrilegious and all this sort of stuff. Like, I think reading about it, I think the second one actually was more controversial than the first one. I don't know, maybe because of the Illuminati elements or such. And I wasn't really paying that much attention when the actual book came out. I think it was only like 10 or something. But yeah, like all of that stuff is just side matter and stuff. You don't need to know anything about religion or basically in order to sort of watch the film. It would be more interesting if it had some actual basis in. If it wasn't using the religious elements as window dressing, essentially, just like stuff like that, it would be like you think. Because I think a good comparison point with this is Indiana Jones. Like he's an archaeologist, and this guy in this is a symbologist. But I think in Indiana Jones there is actually a sense that some of the historical is actually weighing on the clues that he gets to do the adventures, and like it makes sense. Like what he's doing has some relation to the history of, like the fact he's an archaeologist actually helps him. Well, in this, as you're right, it's just like these angels pointing towards this eye, which is pointing towards there, which is giving it. It's just flavor, basically.
Yeah, like one of the things in it, like for example, is like they when they find that right at the end when they find the like hidden stairwell thing, they're like the eye's looking in this direction. But it's like a symmetrical eye type thing. And the other side of it, the other side of the eye, it's in a pentagram. And the pointy part of the pentagram is in the opposite direction to where they're saying it's looking. Like, someone could come along and go, well, the eye is looking that way at the top, at the point of the pentagram in the other direction. Like, it's nothing like... it's just him going, yeah, I think this is the case, and then it just, like, magically turns out that is the case. Like, there's... like, there's no...
Yeah, and also...
logic behind
Go on.
it. There's no real logic behind what he's, like... Or, if there is, it's not really expressed well in the film. There's not a real terrible lot of logic to what he connects things to other things.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's just flavouring. It's just to keep the, it's just to go from A to B, basically.
Yeah.
But I think also it's a good comparison point with Indiana Jones because you compare like Spielberg to Ron Howard, like both populist directors making like blockbusters. If you watch like Indiana Jones or any Spielberg film, The Post, for example, like completely opposite end. That's a lot of dialogue scenes. They're like directed in a way which is so much better than this. Like I didn't want to mention it because I didn't want to bias it during the film. But if you notice, what it'll be is like character walks into a room. There's 3 people, always 3, so there's more ways to cut. And literally, it'll be 2 seconds of someone talking, cut to reaction, cut to someone else's reaction, and back to them. Then a wide shot, and like it never stays on anyone for more than 2 seconds. It's the most simple, basic way to do like any scene is just like someone talks and then cut around basically constantly without any like it never gets a fixed point on anything for more than like 2 seconds in an attempt not to bore the audience, basically. But I don't think there's a single image from this I could even remember. It's so generically directed, and
I don't know. I think the images of like the inside of like the Pantheon and the inside of was it the Sistine Chapel, like all the wonderful CGI there, that's burnt into my retinas.
yeah, this has really got 2008 effects written all over it. Hilarious that this must have come out then in the same year as Avatar. So yeah, you've got one end of the spectrum of what CGI can do, and then you've got this where everything, like there's close-ups of like they're in the Pantheon, and you can see the background, which are these people who've been green screened in, and yeah, it looks absolutely terrible. I think another thing and all that's funny about this is they've got the main character Robert Langdon, who basically you can't have an action scene with him in because he's just sort of a symbologist who hasn't got any ability to actually do very much other than the symbol stuff. But he, for the plot to work, has to be like there when the action happens. So instead of like again like Indiana Jones or something where he'll get into an actual fight with people, what has to happen is he has to be surrounded by like 5 people who can get picked off while he hides or runs away in every single action scene.
Yeah, and it does also sort of create some unintentional like comedic moments in the film, like him sort of bumbling around whatever the scene is while people get killed around him, and him making it seemingly worse. Like it's it's beautiful comedy. I think like the change the soundtrack just a little bit, and it's like almost a perfect comedy scene where he's trying to save the cardinal from burning to death. Like,
you say that, but who on earth would want to change a soundtrack this beautiful? I think seared in my memory forever will be the haunting notes of this incredibly. As we were talking through, it's Hans Zimmer, the famous composer. And yeah, this literally sounds like, as you were saying, just bits and pieces from other things that he just rendered not good enough for like Interstellar or something.
Yeah.
Or YouTube Live.
Like the whoever the director was for whatever film was just like, yeah, no, this is too generic and like weak. Try, have another run at it. But yeah, Ron Howard was like perfect. It doesn't.
Like Christopher Nolan was talking to him, like, don't you have a Ron Howard film that you can score instead with this? He's not picky, we all know that.
But yeah, I imagine like Ron Howard's directorial decisions sort of mostly hinge on like, is this going to make this film stand out too much? If so, no, we need more generic. Like, I think that's how he remains so consistent. He just like he makes films like just above the baseline of what is like good in cinema.
Yeah, he's competence basically personified. There's not going to be anything in it that's going to be too awful or anything, but there'll never be anything in it that's any better than, like, have you ever seen the film he did, Rush, the one about the racing car drivers?
No.
That is literally like, so it's the premise is that it's 2 different racing drivers. One of them is really fastidious and, he doesn't like to, he follows all the rules and practices really hard, but the other one has more natural talent. And what will happen when these 2 different persons, you could basically, from that description, I think you could write the screenplay and do it in a day, basically. There's not a single surprise in the entire film. But yeah, like, you look at his work and it's just literally, there's like a Beautiful Mind or Apollo 13, like any single one of them, you could basically look at the description of it, the synopsis, and guess everything that's going to happen in the film.
Yeah, I suppose, and I suppose for a lot of people as well, that's probably like some of the appeal of them. It's like, you're not going to get anything that's too like out there or like too difficult to grasp or get, or Like, it'll just be like a fine film that you can follow. You may zone out every now and again, but it's fine because everything's so basic. You know where it's going to go. I genuinely would like to meet the person who thought that Ewan McGregor was not the the bad guy. Was fooled right up to the end. Because I've got a bridge to sell.
Here's some shares in. But yeah, so the film will have the two people you're supposed to think are the villains are Stellan Skarsgård and the evil priests. And they're shot in slightly dodgy ways and stuff. While Stellan Skarsgård acts a bit moody. And anyone who doesn't see that coming is an absolute rube basically. It's funny and all actually because this film is like a meeting of the minds basically of two people who are competence personified. Because it's also written by David Coep or Cope. I've never actually heard it spoken. Do you know who he is?
No, not sure.
He's a screenwriter, and literally every single film he's done is just a blockbuster where it's you can guess everything that's coming. He did the 2002 Spider-Man, War of the Worlds. Let's have a look at some of the 90s ones. Mission Impossible, Carlito's Way. Yeah, he basically just writes the generic adult blockbuster kind of thing. He has made more flops than Ron Howard. He's responsible for Mordecai, if you remember that.
Mordecai. Oh yeah. I remember that.
I don't think anyone else does actually. That was a huge flop. The Mummy as well. He did The Mummy, the Tom Cruise one.
Oh, I thought that was Alex Kurtzman. Or did he
co-written with?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he directed it, but David Coep, Christopher McQuarrie, who did the Mission Impossible films after the first one. Yeah, it's them who did it basically. And he did Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit as well, David Coep, which I don't even remember being a thing. The Christopher Pine one.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I have no idea. Yeah, I've never seen it.
Jesus Christ, this guy's career is just Zarufa or Zafura, the space adventure. Is that the sequel to Jumanji?
Yeah, that was that one that they did not long after Jumanji that no one watched. And then now they've done better ones. Yeah, that seems to be a trait of his career, films that he's directed and written that no one's going to watch. The funniest entry on here is The Little Engine That Could, a 2011 American direct-to-DVD animated film. I was going to say though, I was going to say the writing is pretty competent in this film. And when you mentioned The Mummy, I was well, that film's practically incoherent, as a film. But then you kept saying other movies, and I'm oh, maybe this film was the exception, not the rule.
Well, I think his 90s work's good, Jurassic Park and Carlito's Way is a good film, and I think he's probably gone downhill quite a lot, to be honest, from his earlier period. And Tom Hanks as well. I think he's got that veneer of being a competent leading man and stuff. Doesn't rock the boat very much. I know he's a massive star, obviously. He's a cut above he's a cut above David Coep and Ron Howard, but I don't think he's in very much that's very challenging.
Well, I suppose The Mummy's not really an adaptation of anything, this is, or... But I suppose Mordecai was also an adaptation. I don't know. Maybe he's just a shit writer that sometimes gets it right every now and again. It seems to be the case.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing actually because it is the most stupid, hardest thing to adapt in some ways. Because I'm assuming that the books that I've not read are going to be heavily people just spouting exposition off at each other. like you see a bit of it in this actually, which is quite. You say it's competently written, but it does have several scenes where it's like, like he'll go like, oh, it's in the cave. Oh, the cave. What's the cave? And then someone will explain the cave, going like, well, I know what the cave is, and so do you. However, it is this. Just like things where everyone in the audience, everyone in the scene knows what it is, but they have to get the attention to the audience, or something like, didn't you write your an essay on this? Oh yes, and it's like, oh yeah, I already knew that. Let's go there, and stuff like that, which is just terrible. I think it's a badly written film because the source adaptation is like bad, cheap, pulpy stuff. Yeah. But the direction of it keeps it going because, as I say, it never stays on anything for very long. Or people will be running towards the next scene. Well, I think it's an improvement definitely on what I can remember of the DaVinci Code, just purely based on how fast-paced it is and the fact that it never stops to sink in how dumb everything is, basically, because it keeps going so quickly. It's how you wouldn't actually. And again, a reason why it's quite a good film to zone out of is because it is so fast-moving. You never have to pay very much attention to the problems involved in the writing or the plotting or anything.
Yeah, I think as well, like with regards to the direction and that sort of thing, it will normally have something sort of shocking happen on screen, so it draws you back in for like the important bits that you actually need to be paying attention to, it's got each of those bits where the cardinals are being like brutally murdered and stuff like that. So like once you see the murder, you're like, all right, okay, got to tune back in.
Every 20 minutes a cardinal dies, and you're like, oh yeah, phone down for 5 minutes. Cardinal's gonna die.
Yeah. But they sort of did them in. They initially did them, I suppose, in like ascending order of brutalness. Like, each of them got like more thing until the last cardinal, which was probably about the most like underwhelming one, where they like just put him in a fountain with some weights on him. So like the other dude was like stabbed to death. There was another guy that was like burned alive. Like.
Yeah, like, that last one was particularly shoddy as well, like, because obviously the guy's going to take a few minutes to drown. Like, if someone could easily just walk up to it, see him, and then like shout for help as well.
Yeah, pretty much what he did anyway. Like,
exactly, yeah. Like, well, this is again, it's the core contradiction of what is the issue with the film, which is that the lead character's only job is to get people to the next event, really. Like in a normal film, he would probably be like the sidekick, to be honest, because he can't do anything when he even gets there, which leads to that ridiculous scene where he corners the bad guy, and the bad guy's got a gun, so he just leaves them, and basically, because the film needs to continue, keeps them alive, even though in reality he would just shoot them straight away. So yeah, like what they should have done is paired him like competently. I'm assuming they couldn't do it because it was based on the book and they didn't want to annoy people by changing the book too much. They should have paired him with the woman. Should have been someone who was actually able to do action stuff, and then he could have like led her there, and she could have done the action bits and stuff. Made it more of a sort of standard. He's the one who's not very physically intimidating, but he has a sidekick. Because anytime anyone gets killed in it, you don't care because they're like just generic, generic people that you've already been introduced a minute ago to.
Yeah, they're all human shields, like that's all they are.
Robert Lang.
Get him to the next scene, guys. I believe in you. But
and again as well, like it's so fast. It also like cuts through stuff that makes it not even make sense. Like the bit that we were laughing at was about half an hour in. He's taken to like the sacred vaults where he has to. He's been wanting to get there, and he'll let him in just for the one brief period, so he can solve the one clue at that moment. And yeah, he rips the woman he's with rips a page out of the book, and then they just walk out without doing anything to, hide the book or anything. So yeah, because it has to get through so much, it doesn't even do like basic film literary stuff. Like, just to make it make more sense, basically, with the world they've created.
Oh yeah,
and I think that a bit. Yeah, like there's a lot of good films as well that are based on like trash books or like airport thrillers, which this essentially is. Like I know that the books are written in a way where it's like a chapter every 5 pages, so you can whiz through it and you're getting through it quite quickly, I think. Like, a filmmaker who had a lot more style and stuff, I think could have made like a really good track. The problem I think with the film is, and we'll get to sort of the religious stuff, because I think that's a problem in it as well, like the way that's portrayed. But the thing is that like it's just so generic as well, and like I think a filmmaker like Brian De Palma, who made like The Carrie and has adapted like Scarface, like if you had someone like that who was stylish and knew what they were doing and made like a sort of trashy film based on it, like that could have been more interesting than sort of this, which is sort of more generic and treats the source material in a more earnest way. Like they just needed someone who had a bit more to them than Ron Howard.
Yeah, I think that, like, and, if you were probably rating this as an adaptation, like, I think you'd, like, probably give it high marks on that. Like, I've not read the book, but I imagine that, reading the book would be, like, a similar sort of pace to like, this film. Like, the pacing-wise, I would imagine that they're very... very similar animals, the film and the thing, just sort of whisking you through, getting you to the next scene so you don't think about the scene that you've just read too much.
Yeah. Every chapter is like 10 pages, and look, you'll have like some backstory or like a little bit of event and stuff, or some. Yeah, I think it's like literally it'll be like characters needs to get to next place. This is why it's got some Christian basis that you can explain through symbols. Next scene kind of thing. But I think a stylish director though would be able to do more with that and turn it into something which had more to it than just an adaptation of it like it is here and stuff without anything added on to it and stuff. But I think I hope though that like Ron Howard actually is the one who had the idea of keeping it so kinetic and stuff, like making them actually deliver the exposition while walking. I think that's actually a change from the book, because I think the first one is more true to the DaVinci Code in that characters just sit around explaining stuff rather than do it while moving. I think there's some improvement there in the second one from the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like definitely. From what I remember of the first one, which I probably watched, I don't know, 10 years ago, like, but yeah, from what I remember, it is a bit. Well, I don't think it's paced badly. Like it is a lot more boring than this one, and there's a lot less happening. But I don't think it's like it. I don't remember it being a film that was like a slog to get through. Like it still moved along fairly well. But I think this time round they've just been like, just turn it up to 11. Like, let's see what sticks. And you just get this like thing where everything just passes by, but it's not important. So you can still like, and I suppose you can say that's like, that potentially is like this, stated goal of the film is just to sort of, get the story through as quickly as possible and not have the audience think too much about it and just sort of go, ooh, isn't that interesting? Like Ron Howard has like succeeded most definitely in that regard, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was just thinking as well, Ron Howard is his spiritual successor Jon Favreau, because he's a similar one to that, isn't he? Where he just makes generic films every couple of years.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't watched. I suppose I've watched a few Jon Favreau films, but he might well be. I don't know. I get a feeling that he's like a bit better than Ron Howard, but also he plays it safe.
Yeah, well, he's more of that style of doing one for me, one for you, I think. Like, I know he made, like, Iron Man and used the money to make Chef and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that Ron Howard seems to be, we'll make 5 films for you, then one that might be deemed for me, but then it'll flop, so he'll make, like, 10 more for the studio and stuff.
Although, you know...
But, yeah, like, looking at his filmography, like... Oh, go on.
I was going to say, or he just, like, picks a film that is still, like... He says it's a film for him, but it's not. It's still like some studio trash or whatever. Like, but so he has like a veneer of like the thing that he thinks is like the most sort of prestige type thing that he can do. He's like, oh yeah, I'll say that's the one for me, and then the rest of the trash is for the studio. But it's all for the studio.
Yeah, like looking at him, I bet he definitely thinks like Frost Nixon is for him because that's a little bit more prestige, or Cinderella Man, and then yeah, something that like backfires, like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or I don't know, In the Heart of the Sea, which is the film that's the Moby Dick one. I bet he'll go like, oh yeah, they were studio films. I didn't want to make them kind of thing. It's interesting in all that he seems to have had as many flops as he has. Films that have done well, but he's still seen as like a safe pair of hands to the point where like Disney got him into it to save Solo from those 2 guys who were going to make it.
Which he did, making it the best film of the 21st century.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. But yeah, he's also made a film called The Dilemma, which is a buddy comedy with Vince Vaughn and Kevin James, which looks like nobody's remember.
Jesus, that sounds awful. I can't even think of that film, but it feels like I should know it, but...
well, this is the premise. The film follows savvy businessman Ronnie Vaughn and genius engineer Nick, Kevin James, who are best friends and partners in an auto design firm. They're pursuing a project to make their firm famous. Ronnie sees Nick's wife, played by Winona Ryder, kissing another man, played by Channing Tatum. Ronnie seeks out answers and has to figure out how to tell Nick about what he saw while working with him to complete their critical presentation.
All right.
So I think that's the dilemma of the film.
I feel like I've actually watched this, but again, I'm like drawing a blank. I don't know. I feel there's something about like energy drink or something in it. Like I'm getting like weird like acid trip flashbacks from watching this film.
Well, it did actually stir controversy. So in the Wikipedia, Universal released a trailer for The Dilemma. The studio drew complaints about the prerogative use of gay. In the trailer, Vaughn has a line where he says, "Electric cars are gay. I mean, not homosexual gay, but my parents are chaperoning the dance gay." And yeah, I think this caused a big stir and they had to edit the trailer. That's probably more famous than the film itself.
Yeah. I would say.
But anyway, so. away from Ron Howard, who is probably even less interested in the film. What did you think of the religious aspects of the film, or how faith was represented?
Well, yeah, I suppose it depends on like what part of the film you're in, really. Like so
which zone?
Like like the as I was saying towards the end there, that the evil cardinal's demeanor like immediately changed, and he was this like lovely, wizened old fellow dispensing like knowledge and whatnot. So like at the start, it's all shadowy cabals and people doing nefarious things, and this is what Christianity is, and this is what Catholicism is, and then by the end, that's all switched over. Like,
yeah, and I think like a problem with the film as well, and like one of the Ron Howardy sort of playing it safe elements of it is it has this sort of central dilemma of faith versus science, or like you could say reason versus faith kind of thing, based on the idea that like the sort of woman who follows Robert Langdon around, she really is the least developed character in the film. she's like a scientist who works in the particle generating whatever it is at the beginning. It's not really the science aspect of it. It's not really very well explored. But then at the end of the film, it just starts this stupid bit where it's like, oh, it turns out faith and science are actually in accord, and we will lead a new version of the church which synthesizes the two, kind of thing. Like, basically, it just completely whips out and basically says, well, can't faith and science just be friends, guys?
Can't we all just get along? Yeah, no, it definitely does that. And yeah, I think that it's sort of, yeah, I suppose it's like one of those sort of, like when people talk about like the, like police forces and stuff like that, and saying, oh, it's only like one or two like bad actors, like individuals within that ruin it for everybody, and it's like, no, the whole system's fucked. But yeah, it's like, it's that sort of thing where they're like, the reason why the church was bad and that sort of thing was because of this one guy that was like trying to, I don't know, I assume that his plan was to become Pope. Like, he did like a really like ass about face way of like getting there. But anyway, I feel like that was his end goal. Like, and like, if you were paying attention and take the parts through, like, there are far too many moving pieces in this plan of his for it to actually work, essentially. But yeah, anyway, but yeah, like, but once he's removed, sorry, go on.
I thought it was actually going to be slightly more interesting than it was. Because I thought, so Ewan McGregor in the film, it turns out, and I'd say spoiler alert, but you can guess this in the first 5 minutes. Ewan McGregor's behind everything, and he's engineered all the kidnappings and everything, so he can. Well, this is the thing that, as you said, it's too many moving parts. He's kidnapped everyone in order that they will be out of the picture, and he will also simultaneously be so popular that he can become the Pope, basically. But I thought what they were doing originally was that he was one of the Illuminati people, and he wanted to raise awareness of the. So basically, within the film, the Illuminati have been, historically, in like the 1600s, they killed scientists who were Illuminati scientists in order to stop science from spreading, basically, and to keep faith as keep people in ignorance, basically, so that they could keep flourishing as a faith. I thought he was going to be an Illuminati guy who was engineering everything so that the church would have to acknowledge its past stuff, and the Illuminati could have, historic, and he would kind of be like an anti-hero in a way. But yeah, because it doesn't even make any sense, because at one point he says, like, like the church must admit its past, and then we can evacuate the city and stuff. But then it's like, because again, his plan only makes sense. So basically, they find the bomb at the end, and then it turns out that it's cold, so they can't replace the battery to defuse the bomb.
Yeah. Because
it's been too cold down there. So he takes a helicopter up, blows it up, but he jumps out at the last minute and is safe. So his popularity then means he could become Pope because he survived this horrible thing and stuff. But yeah, it's like, how does he know that they can't defuse the bomb? Is he a bomb expert as well as being like an ex-pilot and all this sort of stuff? Yeah, but yeah, it would have made a lot more sense if he was an Illuminati member just wanting to raise awareness for the past stuff that the church had done.
Yeah, no, like that's definitely where I thought it was going too, and I suppose that's the biggest twist of the film that we've probably just ruined for anyone who hasn't seen this, is that yeah, it's not that he is some Illuminati figure that's like trying to take down the church. He's doing the opposite. He's trying to make it seem like the Illuminati is wanting to take down the church by sort of then martyring the church and thereby giving it power in line with good Christian doctrine. But yeah, so that's sort of his main thing. But yeah, like I said it early on, it's like he's like poisoning the Pope, so the Pope dies, and this happens in basically So basically, it happens around the time that they're going to create this antimatter that once removed from the thing has a battery in it that is going, and they've timed this so well that it's going to like run down at midnight. Like even like that part, and that's not even like. That's probably like 10% of his plan. Like, even that is like so improbable as like a series of events that could be planned out and would actually happen. You're like, yeah, so.
Yeah, and what I like as well is that it's this big devious plan that seems to be orchestrated by him and his sidekick. And there's like 2 people taking on the entire church, and if his sidekick had died as well, because if he is trying to stop the Illuminati, if he's trying to stop them, if his sidekick had died at any point, then yeah, they would have got exactly what the Illuminati wanted by having the church having to admit what had sort of been the past and stuff, because they can only get the bomb by the guy who's his sidekick finding him and him telling them, or like they only find the bomb because one of the other priests had told them where they were and stuff. So yeah, if any point of it fails at any point, not only has he not achieved his plan, but he's achieved further help for the forces of reason in the Illuminati and stuff. Like, yeah, it seems like if any one point of it stops, he's not only lost one thing, he's basically lost the entire premise of his project and stuff. Like.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, like just how, as I said, how many moving parts are going on in this sort of thing. It's like it's sort of like, and I made this comparison a couple of times. It's like it's on the same level as Palpatine in like the in the prequels. Like there are a few parallels with this film, but yeah, I think like it is at that same sort of like ridiculous level. Like there's so much shit that's going on, and there's so much that could go wrong at any point. And I suppose like you've then got the reverse of it, which is like Robert Langdon figuring stuff out, but like the opposite sort of thing, like what he is seeing could potentially be interpreted 100 different ways. Like at any point they could have gone wrong on that thing, but for some reason everything just comes together perfectly in this world. Nothing ever goes wrong. If something does go wrong, it's very minor or resolved very easily. So yeah, it's a really I would say believable world. But
yeah, and also like it doesn't even make any sense, like because it seems like some of his plan as well seems to be, ad hoc, sort of made up on the spot. Like he doesn't. I don't even know if he wants to become the priest, because part of him becoming the priest is that he's sort of able to paint himself as the poor sort of martyred person kind of thing, because the guy who's the cop is going to kill him at one point, but that's like only something he's engineered by improvising basically, and also so he puts he burns himself at one point to make himself like the fifth victim, I suppose you could say, but also that doesn't make any sense. Like who's the person who's supposed to? Because his plan is that he says he was going to do it alone, where he got branded in the chest and stuff. Mm-hmm. But also, is that supposed to be a thing where he then, like, the guy who did it got away after he did it to him and didn't kill him? Because that would seem to raise more questions.
I assume, like, he probably was banking on, like, when he brands himself and screams that someone would then come, like, banging down the door. And therefore, the assailant, is interrupted and absconds before he's captured. Like that sort of thing isn't like too hard to figure out. Like how you could like play that both ways. But yeah, I think that like, but yeah, as I said, like before you even get to that point, like that's probably like the least convoluted thing that he does. Like,
Yeah.
like, and this, well, you know, like we're talking about like the whole bomb thing, and he takes it up and blah blah blah. Like the they realize that the battery is lower because the physicist lady is like, oh, it's cold here, so the battery doesn't run as well in the cold, and so like it would be lower, but she doesn't know that it's like less than 5 minutes, and like but yeah, she doesn't know that it's less than 5 minutes, but like even if so, it hinges on her realizing that it's cold, and that might have affected the battery. Like, what happens if she just wasn't paying attention and just like just undid the battery and it just like all blew up? Like,
Yeah, because the thing with his plan is it's based on other people acting in the way he expects it to as well. Like, yeah, she could do that, or she could have got killed at an earlier point or something. Like, she could have not been there when it happened and stuff. Like, there's no guarantee that he didn't even do anything really to engineer her. I know he obviously engineered that. Yeah, the whole thing's stupid. Yeah, it falls apart as soon as you think about it for 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's why it sort of just whizzes you through.
Yeah. But yeah, to get back to the church thing at the end, like, because I think the first one, it looked like was banned in several countries, the DaVinci Code. Obviously not like a major one, because it managed to make so much money, like America and England and most of Europe, I think, managed to get to see it. But yeah, like the second one, I think reading into it, it looks like the church basically said, oh, we're not going to do anything about it, probably realising the controversy would have made it bigger than it was, because this film did make like half of what the first one did. It still made loads of money, but you talk about 400 rather than 800 million. But like, yeah, it's interesting that at the end as well, like they do just lie to cover up everything that's happened as well. Like, they're not exactly like incorruptible, the church at the end.
Oh yeah, but no, they're lying for like good reasons. They don't want to like, besmirch the name of the church and that sort of thing. Like we're meant to think that like a Catholic Church cover up can be a good thing sometimes. Like I feel like that's the message that they're trying to send, which is demonstrably false, I suppose. Like.
I was going to say, is this before or after the famous cover-up of the sexual abuse scandal?
I don't know. I would say it'd have to be after. Wasn't that all like early 2000s?
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah.
Yeah, early 2000s, I think. So yeah, after that, there's a mainstream film that's come out saying, oh, the church can lie sometimes for the greater good.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so it is. I suppose the morality of the film is a bit weird, and like I talked about this as like the priest says to Langdon, God sent you, and Langdon's like, I don't believe that he did, and then the priest just basically repeats that God sent him, and as I said at the time, it's like, yeah, now that everything has worked out well, like, God sent him. Like, everyone else was against him up until, like, everything worked out. And there's, like, that sort of ends justify the means type, like, thinking in the whole film. I suppose it's sort of, it is at least a consistent theme, because it seems to be the, like, when she rips the page out of the book and all that sort of thing, that's seen as a bad action, but it's justifying the end result.
Yeah, I also find it, well, it's interesting that you mentioned the stuff about, like, does he believe in God? Because that's a thing that they've definitely toned down from the first one massively. Like, in the first one, I think there is a lot more of, like, does Robert Langdon believe in God, and what's his reasons for doing all this? And I seem to remember in the first one that Audrey Tautou, I think, the person who played Amelie, she's in the first one. I'm fairly sure that it's implied that she's related to Jesus somehow, or she's like Mary Magdalene's. Like, I'm not wrong in remembering that, am I? Like,
No, that's right. Yeah. So basically, the premise of the film is like showing that Jesus had a wife and then they had children and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then it's like the woman that he's with, basically, Amelie, it turns out that she is that, like, a very long lost relative, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they've toned that down significantly.
Completely, like, also completely ignoring the fact that, like, if that were the case, like, Jesus had a child that then had more children, based on the time and just pure mathematics, it would mean everyone is related to Jesus. Basically, everyone in in the Middle East and Europe would be like in some way related to Jesus, just purely on a mathematics basis.
Yeah, but that implies that, like what Dan Brown's clearly done is he's just gone, like, what would be a good twist? Ooh, she's actually Mary Magdalene's great-great-great-great-granddaughter, not thinking through the implications of anything in it, basically. It's just whatever will get the next twist to get, like, the audience gasping and turning the next page, basically.
Yeah. But I feel like you were making a point about something.
Just about how, like, because basically with the second one, they've definitely toned it down significantly. Like, there's no, because it is so quickly paced and it's just like rapid fire getting to the next bit. They've definitely cut rid of all the contemplative bits where he's supposed to be contemplating God and whether he's, because the central thing in the first one is supposed to be that, is he a believer or not, and like, he spends so much time but he doesn't know about God and stuff. That's relegated to like 6 lines in this, basically. I mean, I think that's to the film's benefit. Like, they're incredibly dull conversations in the first one that don't go anywhere and doesn't explore the themes very well. But I just find it interesting that they decided to tone it down so significantly just to make it a pure sort of popcorn flick in the second one.
I suppose the only real significant, like, conversation that happens is when he's talking to, like, Ewan McGregor. And basically, like, sort of takes the middle road on it. Is like, I don't believe in God, but I also I don't, I know in my heart that I'm not meant to know, that sort of thing. And it's like fuck off.
The centrist dad of religion, basically.
Yeah. Just either say you're a fucking atheist or just go, I'm agnostic. Done. It's fine.
Yeah. I think everyone should be able to like their own God. But so would you watch Inferno, the third one?
Well, yes. I feel like we should watch it. Not based on this film. I just feel a certain level of obligation now. So that's gonna be fun. And I do have it now.
Yeah, so let's do Inferno as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think so. So would you recommend this film to people? Would you?
Depends what you're after. Like, it is a perfect film for just, like, people who don't want to think very much and put something on Netflix and not focus. Like, you could watch it after a hard day of work. You don't really want to do very much. You just want to put something on in background and chat to your partner or go on your phone while something plays in background. It's good for that, but you pay attention to it for more than 2 minutes and it just falls apart completely, basically. But it's not. It's like any Ron Howard film. It's not incompetently made and it's not boring by any means or anything. It's unchallenging fluff that will just move quite quickly. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, no, I'm the same as you. I would only sort of I suppose this is like what you maybe refer to as like a holiday film, in that, like, you've got the family over and you're making some sort of food for a holiday thing, and like, so people are just like sort of cycling in and out of the room and that sort of thing. It's one of those good movies, like you can you put it on, you watch a bit of it, oh no, you've got to go baste the turkey, so you go do that, you come back, one of the cardinals is dying, you're like, yep, okay, I'm still on board this movie. Like, I think it's one of those movies, like, just sort of something that you can drift in and out of doing something else.
Yeah, like, I actually first watched this in the cinema with me mum and grandma, neither of whom are like cinephiles or anything. So it's the kind of film, that you go and see with your mum or something, or like, it's the kind of thing that people who are, it's the Agatha Christie books of film, really, and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I mean, though, about it feeling like a TV film as well, like, rather than an actual theatrical experience and stuff. Because, like, this sort of, you're in a cinema as well, and I think this also is, like, better on home video and stuff than at the cinema, because in the cinema, you're forced to pay attention, obviously. You can't do anything else and stuff. But yeah, on Netflix or on DVD or something, like, obviously DVD is a bit of a waste of money if you pay for something you're not going to pay attention to, but you can literally just filter out stuff that you don't want to see or do something else while it's playing.
Yeah. Like, oh, could you imagine, like, that CGI on, like, the big screen? Like... What was your reaction when you first saw it? Like, I never saw this in theaters, but like...
Well, going back to 2009, I can't remember all, but I can't even picture it was good. Or, like, even at that time, I was still into film enough to know that this wasn't like a great film or anything, or like... But yeah, I would imagine just laughing at it, basically, when it was on.
Yeah, yeah. So, watch it if you want to, but... You don't need to pay attention. As you said earlier on, use it as like your Netflix and chill movie. Like, it's not boring, but you can. Well,
just,
this could be a
good. This is the thing. I think that there's an inherent ageism in Netflix and chill. People think, oh, it's these cool young millennials, doing it. Well, older people, people in the 50s. Here's the thing: if you're a divorced dad who wants something to put on for your date and you're over in your 50s, this is the film to put on, the older Netflix and chill, vintage Netflix and chill.
Yeah, and I think, like, if you're someone of that age and you're dating like someone of a similar age to you, like, this would be perfect, like, because it is something that you can just sort of go away from. But if the spark's not happening, you definitely. You're definitely not going to be sitting there bored with this other person, and it'll sort of zip by. And also, I suppose there is also the shots of Tom Hanks swimming at the start. So maybe that's enough to get your date going. Maybe that's.
It's got an assemblage of. Older men as well, like, it could be like the woman's like, oh, I remember Ewan McGregor from Trainspotting when I was in my 20s, or Stellan Skarsgård, he's like a hunky Danish guy, oh, he's like an older Matt Nicholson.
Yeah, I think we've cracked it. I think this is like the perfect, like, I suppose, boomer Netflix and chill movie.